Hey guys, so Squire and I have wanting to make a video just because it'll be easier to kind of say everything that we need to say instead of posting a bazillion Facebook posts over and over again. And then also once you start posting a lot, people quit looking at it or quit listening. And then it's also hard to read tone and how people are actually feeling in a post. And so we just kind of want to share a little bit about our feelings, about what's been going on, about what's been going on for a long time, because a lot of everyone that knows us knows that Squire and I have shared a lot of stuff about police brutality, racism, and have been told that we're lying or we're exaggerating or it's not actually racism, or just lots of stuff like that over the past, his life, us together 4.5, 5 years. So this kind of all accumulated to this point right here, and so I think we're going to just take a moment to share about what's been going on, how we've been feeling.
I think a big thing about what Maggie was just saying about how people will kind of tell me, but also Maggie, like she was saying, after the last about 5 years, about how none of it's really real, you know? And I think the most frustrating part is that the people that I hear the most from that it's not real are the people that I will go to church with and have a very emotional relationship with. There will be someone that I truly cherish and I love as a person, and I did not know the whole time kind of where they were at in life and what they think about black people or about black lives and struggles and stuff like that. You know, I think that it's hard to explain to people like oppression in today's standards when they think that oppression is just slavery. I think that it's hard to explain to them that what oppression is now when, like, think back in MLK's day, people were getting fire hosed and chased by dogs and beaten by batons. And so I think that they're like, well, if it's not that bad, it's not that bad now.
If it's not as bad as it was segregation, you shouldn't complain. And we've honestly heard that before. And the sad part is we've heard it from a Christian man who I've known for a long time, and who proclaims that he's a Christian very openly. And so that's the part that I think is most painful for us both as Christians, is that the hardest pushback we have ever gotten from trying to share our story, share the stories of other people, are from the Christian white community. And I think that's disgusting. I really do. I think that's horrible. It goes against everything the Bible talks about. Goes against everything a Christian is supposed to act like and believe. You know, one of my favorite analogies or comparisons to do is the fact that Jesus never once said, whoa, stop. Your struggle isn't that bad. Stop telling me about that. I know how it is. Because, if any person could have done that, it would have been Jesus, who knew everything. But he never once said, no, quit telling me about your struggles because I don't think it's that bad. Instead, he sat down with them, he cried with them, he ate with them. When Lazarus died, he didn't tell the sisters, stop crying, he's going to come back to life. No, instead it says he actually wept with them. So he knew that pain wasn't going to last, but he understood, he listened to them and didn't tell them that they shouldn't be sad or worried. And so to see such a large part of the community of Christians only sharing about the riots, never. And if we needed to, we could probably call out at least 100 people that we know personally that are strong Christians who have never shared one thing about Black lives being killed or mistreated or racism, but have only shared about the rioting or just blatantly ignored it. And that's horrible. And again, I think that's part of the reason why we get so upset, because it goes against everything that Christianity teaches, but it's constantly being told to. The community that we're trying to convince is not the community that we should be trying to convince that racism is real, that these problems are real, or try to get y'all, you Christians, to speak up for us, or to speak up for my husband or all the other black people. That is not the community we should be trying to convince, but it is. I think, before we get any further, obviously we believe that these riots, the violence is wrong. Obviously.
I want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
So, like, with her talking about the riots, I think that one of the most frustrating things is that I see people who never, like she was talking about, never have a voice or an opinion on, like they come, I'm your like Squire, I'm their brother in Christ, right? And then someone black dies, and they never say, Squire, how are you feeling? Are you okay? What did you think on this? And that's fine. They don't even have to say nothing to me specifically. Honestly, I can give a crap if they texted me. But then when they go to make a post, it is like I've been seeing this a lot, and it says, man, that sucks that black guy died, but these riots have to stop. And I saw the it's not the contrapositive, but it's flipped. I don't know how to. Anyways, it's man, these riots are bad, but killing black people has to stop. And I saw that, and I was like, to me, that was a perfect wording. I think that
your priorities are switched.
I think that, like the community of people who we're trying to talk to, and it doesn't even have to be all Christians too. It can just be just a racist person. Why do you have such a big voice? And why do you feel like you want to band together with people when the riots are happening? But for me, if you've known me, I'm going to say for the last 10 years, you've known me for the last 10 years, why didn't you care about the stuff that I've been showing you and I've been telling you? I do not want to name drop, but I know that, like, if you're listening to this, I know that I'm talking to you. Why have you never said anything? But as soon as there's a riot, you're talking about, man, these thugs are so bad. And then I have to go in your comments and I'm like, hey, maybe you shouldn't share that. Maybe you shouldn't say that. I'm not, straight up, I'm not going to justify any of the riots. I'm not going to condemn them either. I saw a post and it said, imagine, I'm going to use me. If me and Maggie had a baby and someone killed my son, and there was thousands of babies just getting killed, and I'm not talking abortion, but I'm just saying, thousands of these infants getting killed all the time, and then my kid gets killed, and it's just injustice. The person who kills them gets off free, nothing happens. Do you know how much anger I would have? I would freak out. I would freak out. I don't know if I'm going to go burn down, the gas station over here, but I know that I can't control myself if that happened. My kid just died. And then on Facebook, when I see it, and there are other people who are upset about it, they're being told,
you shouldn't be that angry.
You shouldn't be that angry.
And like, I see a lot of people, and I don't want to assume that they're purposely being small-minded, but they'll say, why are you protesting if George Floyd's killer was arrested?
He got charged with manslaughter.
He got charged with third degree when that was obviously intentional, number one. So again, we have that unlawful judicial system.
He wouldn't have been charged if there wasn't a camera either.
And then it's so much bigger than that. I mean, it's so much bigger than that. And this is just a case that was recently been reviewed. But if you look at the news in any open-minded way, you'll see all the people that have been injured or harmed. I shared a video on Instagram of a black woman and a white woman protesting, sitting on the ground with a sign, sitting there.
Side by side.
And sitting there. And the cop tells the white woman to get up, and immediately shoves the black woman and handcuffs her and arrests her. When they're doing the exact same thing, they're friends, they're sitting there. And that alone just shows you the racial disparity that we have in our nation. And it's not just this George Floyd case. It's been going on for, hundreds of years. And like, people will say that, the rioting is wrong, which yes, destroying property is wrong, but destroying property doesn't come near to lives. And if you want to argue that, then I'm going to raise you a question, and I'm going to say, if someone comes in your house and says, let me shoot you or let me take all of your property, are you going to say, shoot me? No. You're going to say, take my stuff. Because stuff does not matter as much as people's lives. So don't be illogical or jump back and forth in your argument if you can't apply that same thinking to all the other areas in your life and you just want to apply it to this one area. Because that is ignorant and that's hurting so many people. And then one more thing that I want to say about these riots is people keep sharing this post about MLK and how he protested peacefully. But he was assassinated. He was beat. He was, arrested 9 or more times.
He was killed for peacefully protesting like you guys are asking. Colin Kaepernick was peacefully protesting like you guys are asking. And then your president called him a son of a bee and told him to get off the effing field.
And the deal is that when MLK was peacefully protesting, anti-segregation laws were not passed. It wasn't until 6 days of rioting hell, raising hell all over for 6 straight days, destroying over $47 million worth of property, that they passed the anti-segregation civil rights law. So it took 6 days of straight hell for them to actually do something. So rioting does work, even if it is a terrible thing. It serves its purpose. And if protesting didn't make people uncomfortable, nothing would be done, which is why nothing was passed until the rioting happened with MLK. It wasn't until people started getting uncomfortable, everyone started knowing about it, that things were pushed to be corrected. So that is for sure our stance, and I am gonna say this very pointedly, and if you feel that I'm talking to you, I probably am. If you share anti-rioting stuff, but you have never shared anti-police brutality or anti-racism stuff, you are the problem. You are who we're talking about. You are someone that I will never feel comfortable with. You are someone that I will not let watch my future kids. You are someone that I will not believe is truly anti-racist. Because you are not sharing both sides like you say you're being. You are only sharing, pointing at people's anger and saying, oh my God, they should stop being so angry, instead of looking at the cause and listening to what people are saying.
Yeah, I feel like people are more upset at the symptoms and not the illness.
And
you're not upset about the illness, but the symptoms of what is happening. That's what you're upset about.
For hundreds of years. And when you look back over it, there has been, I think, 7 riots of burning stuff, destroying property, all hell break loose because their football team didn't win. And all 7 of those riots were started by white people, but that was okay then. Then there was, of course, this riot that just happened where people were carrying illegal firearms, which Square and I both, this is aside from firearm conversation, because we believe everyone should have that right, but some states don't. And people were allowed to illegal carry, and I say people, but really it was white men mostly. Illegal carry, they set fires as well. They destroyed property. They were marching and fighting for the right to not wear a mask or to come out of their house. But that was okay then. And Squire and I are both, we are on the right side of the political system. Middle right for sure. I probably am a little bit far more right than he is. However, so we do support a lot of what Trump does, not everything, but a lot of what he does. We voted for him in office. But he posted calling the people who were rioting with illegal firearms good people, and asked for everyone to listen to them.
Good Americans.
Yes, good Americans. And then he called the black people who were rioting because they're being murdered and beat up and unjustly put in jail, thugs. And that just tells you this system that we have right now. That's terrible. I don't care how you want to look at it. That's terrible. And I'm not saying, anything about Republicans or Democrats, but that alone, that inconsistency should not be allowed. And the fact that it is and supported by thousands is very unsettling, to say the least. But For sure, we definitely don't think that destroying property is right. But like Scar said, it's also a necessary evil that has to be done, because silently protesting hasn't worked. Calmly protesting hasn't worked. Even the protests that have been calm in the Oklahoma City, in Kansas City, in Dallas, those are just the cities near to where we are, they started out peaceful. And if you watch the live feed or the videos from there, they didn't turn bad until the police showed up, started dumping out their milk jugs, then tear gassing them, shoving them, kicking them. It wasn't until the police started instigating things when they shouldn't have been that things started turning bad.
I think it's a combination of there are the police officers who are instigating and stuff like that. I'm not talking about the police officers that are protesting with the protesters. Honestly, my heart's out to you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys who see what's going on and you want to stand side by side with me and people that look like me. I also think that there's, an addition, like I was saying, an addition of, there are people out here who are truly just looking for they're using the protest to go loot, and we don't support those people. Those people who are not actually supporting the people who, like, I'm not, there are black people looting. There's probably, anyways, there are
But
black
I've
people
even
looting.
seen videos
But-
of police officers looting too,
Well,
on
and-
the
well,
job
well,
with their uniforms on.
And I've seen like there's a white lady writing Black Lives Matter on buildings and breaking the windows, and then there's black people standing back like, we never asked you to do that. Why are you doing that? Because they're not going to say this white lady did that. They're going to say these people protesting, these black people protesting are looting. So you just threw dirt on my name, and I didn't even do anything. I didn't do anything. Today when we're protesting, literally, I'm telling you, all of us were very peaceful. All of us were waiting for the lights to turn red to cross the street. All of us were just chanting. There was a couple police officers that were walking around and stuff. None of us went up to them to start anything. And there's still people driving by calling us niggers and all this stuff, like, in Enid. So if I just want to walk around, period. If I just want to walk around and I say, hey man, I just don't want us dying anymore. Well, you're a nigger. Why? That does not make no sense to me. How people can be so hateful. The 3 girls last night, there were 3 white people. There was one that was a grown woman, and there was 2, they may have been in high school, but they were younger. They were younger than me probably. And they're sitting on the corner, and then people are on Facebook calling them idiots and stuff. What did they do wrong? They just stood there. Those people actually just stood there. I don't understand the hate. You guys want peaceful protests. In Enid alone, there's only been 2, and none of them have been any looting or rioting, and people are either idiots, ignorant, or niggers. That's it. You guys sicken me.
Well, and he's not saying everybody. He's obviously upset because this hits home.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of white people that were coming out and hanging out with us.
Yes, not everybody is going to respond like that. However, there is a large there is a large group of people who are. And, even in small towns, and this is specifically in the South, but obviously there's cases north and everywhere, where the police are out of pocket, out of hand. I personally, I haven't had any run-ins with us in Enid before with the police officers here. Literally, Weatherford is a whole nother story. A whole nother story. I mean, racism we didn't even drive at night because we were often so afraid that we were going to have to get stopped illegally by a police officer, and things escalate. I mean, so often that when we drove to Enid, I remember one day we had just had a run with the police officer in Weatherford that night. We drove to Enid the next day. We had 3 police cars in Enid around us. And Sky and I both looked at each other and we said, we feel safer right now than we have ever felt in Weatherford. And, so there, again, not all police are bad. not all precincts are bad. Not all people are racist, obviously.
Yeah.
But we need to speak out against those who are, just like we speak out against the teachers who sleep with their students, the doctors who are not good doctors. The list goes on and on. If you're not good in your profession, that needs to be spoken out about. But especially in a profession where you take or give lives. I mean, that alone, you should be held to a much higher standard. When you look at the military, they have rules that they have to save the person that they just shot in war. In war. They have to save that person if possible. And so in war, they're more civil than most police officers are. None of those officers gave George Floyd CPR. None of them tried to resuscitate him after he was not breathing. No one even checked his pulse.
The people that came in the ambulance didn't come and give him CPR.
Yes,
and he was inside of the ambulance and they drove off.
The doctors have looked at that, and if someone had done CPR immediately as they should have, he would still be alive.
And none of those police officers, if he was still alive, I'm gonna let you know right now, none of those police officers would have went to jail, even for just being abusive. For beating him up, for knocking him out, for sitting on his neck for 4.5 minutes. None of them would have gotten in trouble.
You might say, how do you know that? Well, let me tell you how he knows that. Because that exact police officer had killed 3 other people before unjustly. I believe it was 2 Native Americans and 1 Hispanic. And then he had also 19 other charges of police brutality, and nothing happened. Nothing.
Or complaints. I don't think charges.
Nothing happened. So that just shows you that if he hadn't died, and if the media hadn't been, or there hadn't been a video, we wouldn't know about this. It would have just come completely undone. Just like and I always butcher his name, but the Ahmaud Arbery case, if there wasn't a video of him being chased down and murdered, those people would not have gone to jail.
I think that so there was his lawyer, Ahmaud's lawyer had came out and said that those guys were chasing him down the road for like 3 whole minutes. 180 seconds, they chased him down the road. Imagine how long that is in your brain. That you're running for your life from people.
And you hear gunshots from a vehicle.
And then like, you're supposed to be calm in that situation when someone has their gun on you. That's not even, and see, this is why I think it's more than just a police brutality thing. We're kind of covering police and just racism in general. These guys thought they were vigilantes and thought it was cool to chase down some black guy and kill him, and then found out he did nothing.
And people supported that. They weren't arrested.
Yes, there were so many people that supported
that. Their whole precinct,
that.
Whenever it was brought up, until it went to the higher court, until the media got a hold of it, they all approved of their actions, and that just shows you how terrible this problem is, and that it's so much bigger than just George Floyd. And then kind of branching over, I want to reiterate that again, we do not believe that all cops are bad. We do not believe, we look at a cop and automatically think, oh, you're going to try to kill my husband. It's not like that. But we've had so many instances, for example, in Weatherford one night, outside of our apartment, mine and my husband's apartment, he takes out the trash. And I want to ask this to every white person watching this. He takes out the trash. A police officer pulls by, rolls down his window, and stares at him until he takes his trash out and comes back into his apartment. Because they're looking at him and they automatically assume that he's a potential threat, that he's going to do something illegal or something bad. And the only reason why they would assume that is because he's black. Have you, as a white person, ever had a police officer stop in front of your own place of living to stare at you take out the trash because they were scared of you? No, you haven't, and that's part of the problem. That's why we are having these protests. That's why my husband and I are constantly speaking out about these issues. We've been stopped in Weatherford and had a police pull his gun out. And he said, you were speeding. And when we said, are you sure, officer? He said, oh, no, you're right. So he lied to try to get us to lie because we were afraid. But when we pressed him and said we were doing the right thing, he agreed that we were doing the right thing. We've been stopped before. I'm driving, and they asked for my husband to get out of the car. but he's not driving.
And they always ask me for my ID when Maggie's driving.
And I have never once been in any car, any white male's car, any woman's car, and been asked for my ID when they've been pulled over. And let me tell you, I could call out plenty of people who I've been in their car when they've been pulled over and they were white and being males, and never get asked my ID. But it's only when Squire is in the car or any other black person is in the car, they get asked their ID. And
No.
that alone just shows you. And you know, I'm not saying that officer immediately in his mind said, oh my God, it's a black man, I want to make sure he's not illegal or doing something bad or have warrants on him. It might not be conscious, but it is subconscious racism. It's racial profiling. It's assuming that because he's black, he's done something bad in his life. And that's messed up. That logic and thinking we need to dispel and not allow at all. And there's no justification for that. There isn't any. You know, Squire, I want him to share a story. I know this video is taking forever, so if you've actually made it this far, I'm really proud of you and appreciate you listening. But of him, another police story. I mean, he has countless of them. His dad has even more. But of him being younger and watching the police beat up someone closest to him for no reason.
Okay. I was about 9 years old, and my mom and dad have not been together basically since I was about 1. And so I'd go back and forth with them, you know. And my dad was, I'm not going to say my dad is he was the most cleanest guy, and he followed all the rules back then. But in this particular instant, you know, he wasn't doing anything wrong. My mom asked me if I wanted to stay with my dad. By the way, none of my parents have had custody, like full custody of me. They never went to court, did none of that stuff. So what happened is, I would say, mainly because my mom is white. And so my mom calls the police and says, my son was kidnapped. And they're like, okay, well, where's he at? And my mom was living in Alva, Oklahoma, and my dad was living in Kansas City, Missouri. And I was with my dad in our apartment. And I think I'm like sitting down on the ground playing like Nintendo 64 or something. It was just me and him, and I think it was just me and him in the house, just chilling. And out of nowhere, you know, you hear this like do, like really hard banging on the door. And so my dad gets up, and then, you know, he opens the door, and they just say, "Are you Squire Logan?" That's all they said. And he looked at me and looked at them, and he said, "Yes, I'm Squire Logan." And then they just beat him. There was probably 4 cops. They threw him on the couch, started beating the crap out of him. And I remember, you know, like my dad's just like sitting there taking it, but then he's looking at me while it's happening, and he's like telling me, he's like, "Hey, don't look at this, turn away." And he's like, "It's okay, baby, it's okay." And he's trying to tell him, like, he's trying to make sure that his 9-year-old kid, you know, thinks that everything's okay and that his dad is going to be okay. And I'm sure that my dad probably didn't know what was going to happen to him. He could have died, honestly. And I remember
And there's no video, and if he had died, nobody would have fought for him. Nobody would have stood up and said, "Oh, let's prosecute these 4 cops who didn't even ask any questions that they should have ever done any investigating." And that's facts.
And, you know, like the cops are like push me into the kitchen, and they're like trying to tell me, you know, like my dad's not a good guy, and that, you know, like my mom is coming to get me and stuff like that. And I'm like, what are you guys like talking about? And then my dad ended up going to jail over that, and my mom knew it was wrong, so she dropped charges, but I think my dad still did jail time over it. And I mean, just blatantly, like, she lied, you know, like I wasn't kidnapped, you know. And so I don't know, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff kind of like that. Or like, I remember one time, it was my freshman year in college, and me and Maggie were driving back to Weatherford, and I think I was speeding, and so I get pulled over, and I rolled down my window, and it wasn't license and registration. It wasn't like, how are you guys doing tonight? Like, hey, like no introduction. It was, how effing high are you, boy? And I was like, what? And he said, how effing high are you, boy? And I was like, he just called me boy twice too, like, and not like boy like you're talking to your friend. Like, he had some he meant something by it. And so I was like, no, I don't do drugs, like I don't smoke weed, and he was like, well, step out the car. I'm telling you, I didn't even give him I had nothing yet. It was like, step out the car. And I was outside of the car for like 10 minutes. And then he was like, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I play football at SWASU, and I just came to watch Enid High's homecoming. And I don't know, I guess that got me off, because then he was like...
Yeah, as soon as he mentioned football, the officer was immediately buddy-buddy with him, but up until then, he wasn't. And that just, again, shows that people only like black people for very specific things, and that's sports and black culture, and mostly music. And if you fall outside of those two categories in any way, a whole slew of white people will automatically hate you. They only want you for those two categories. They want you to stay in those boxes. For example, when Cap was kneeling for this peaceful protesting, which is his legal constitutional right, by the way, when he was kneeling, they didn't like that because he was mixing politics. He was mixing his own opinion, his own problems with football. And obviously you can't black football too much, because people immediately were outraged at him trying to speak out at these problems and use his platform.
People were burning Nike
Yes.
shoes and Nike items because one man took a knee.
And those same people are now saying, what is burning gonna do? But when for them they were burning, it was fine, So again, we just have all these illogical inconsistencies here. And those stories that my husband shared, I mean, truly, there's more of them, and there's so many more for other black people out there, or any minority at all, really. Black Lives Matter is not just for black people, it's for Hispanic people, it's for Mexican people, it's for, a slew of people that happen to be darker skinned. Native Americans, so on and so forth. And again, these protests aren't just for these cop issues, it's for just racism in general. There is a sign in some white southern towns in Oklahoma. There are signs across the South that literally say if you're out past midnight, the N-word, but hard R, can be hanged. And those signs are obviously from a long time ago, but the fact that no one in that town has protested that or tried to take it down, and these signs are places in Oklahoma and other places that our friends live in the South, shows you the type of thinking that the large majority of the South, if not the whole U.S., still holds. So it's all of these things that we are protesting, that the movement is for, and it's not a whole black lives are more important than white people, or, whatever you try to say whenever you hear Black Lives Matter. It's simply trying to bring light to the issues that are going on. Speaking out against all these horrible things that have been happening for hundreds of years just because somebody's melanin or is darker than somebody else's.
When you say, this is more towards the people who, when I say Black Lives Matter, or if anyone says Black Lives Matter, and the first thing you think is all lives matter. And if you're a Christian, think about the story when there is 99 sheep and Jesus leaves the 99 sheep to go get that one sheep.
One. But all sheep matter.
Did Jesus say, okay, you sheep, like, screw you guys. I don't care about you no more. I only care about this one. Mm-mm. No, he didn't say that. One was lost.
One was having problems,
one
and
needed
he went
help.
And saved it.
One needed to be with the other 99, to be a part of it. I don't know. I get very frustrated because I try to
That's a good example.
I try to be very open-minded, but sometimes you guys just, I don't mean everyone too. If you're in here supporting, thank you. But I'm just saying, like, people just don't care. They don't care. But it's okay. I'm gonna keep talking. And if I piss you off, hey, delete me.
Yeah, seriously. We have seen a large support from a lot of people across the U.S. as well, and our own friends and family, and obviously we're very thankful for that. I'm not kidding when I say I'm brought to tears when I get on my Facebook feed and I see so much positive reactions to this movement and people speaking out against racism. It really does my heart good, our hearts good, especially, you know, because as any person ever, we should constantly be trying to improve the world for the next generation. And to see so many people speaking out, it makes me hopeful that their kids, I know, or at least not be racist, and that will help continue that spectrum of going out. You know, like rocks in the water. You have a small gathering and then it gets bigger and bigger. And so I am very encouraged when I see people supporting this movement and speaking out against racism. And so, especially if you're one of those people, we see you, so many other people see you, and we're really thankful for that.
I think we're kind of wrapping up. If you watch this whole video, I thank you very much. This Sunday at noon at the Martin Luther King Memorial here in Enid, there's going to be another protest. Obviously, it's going to be peaceful protesting. Bring your signs, bring your voices. If you don't have signs, that's okay. Just be
Did you
there.
say bring your sons?
Bring your signs and bring your voices.
I thought you said sons. I was like, you can bring everybody.
Anyways, be out there. And if you're out there, I thank you. You know, my wife thanks you. My community thanks you. Our community, you know, the people who are for equality for everyone. You know, equality for everyone.
Yeah. Yes, again, thank you, and we appreciate you guys for watching.